Xander Pierce stepped out of his grand mansion, the snow crunching beneath his polished leather shoes. The night was cold, a biting chill that seemed to penetrate every inch of his being. His eyes scanned the empty street, the lights from his home casting long shadows in the snow. The mansion behind him was a symbol of his wealth and power, yet in that moment, he felt something was missing. His wife, Rachel, was inside, busy with her usual tasks, completely unaware of his quiet frustration. The air was thick with an unsettling silence. Suddenly, his gaze fell upon a small figure near the edge of his property. A little girl, no more than 7 or 8, was crouched by the mailbox, her hands trembling as she searched through the letters. Xander's brow furrowed as he walked closer, wondering what a child was doing out here in the cold. "Hey, what are you doing out here?" he called out, his voice sharp, but his tone betraying a hint of concern. The little girl jerked her head up, startled. Her eyes, wide with a mixture of fear and something else, locked with his for a brief moment. She didn't speak. She only looked at him, frozen in place, her small hands still clutching an old, crumpled envelope. The envelope was torn at one corner, the edges worn and ragged as if it had been opened and closed multiple times. "What is that?" Xander asked, a touch softer this time, though still confused by the oddity of the situation. The little girl took a step back, clutching the letter to her chest, as though afraid he might take it from her. "My grandma sent it here," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the howling wind. "A long time ago. I thought maybe it would come back." Xander's eyes narrowed, trying to make sense of her words. This was ridiculous. He hadn't seen her before. "Your grandma sent this here?" he asked, his voice tinged with skepticism. "You know that's not how mail works, right?" The girl didn't respond. She simply stood there, shivering, her worn clothes barely enough to protect her from the cold. The faintest trace of a bruise was visible on her cheek, but it was quickly hidden beneath the dim streetlights. Xander noticed the subtle detail and felt a pang of something unfamiliar. "What's your name?" he asked, his voice now less commanding, more curious. She hesitated before speaking, her voice barely rising above a whisper. "Anna," she replied. "Anna." The name lingered in the air as Xander stared at her, unsure of what to make of this strange encounter. The night felt different now, heavier somehow, as if the weight of something unknown was pressing down on him. He looked at her for a long moment, the cold wind whipping through the air, before he finally spoke again. "Where's your family, Anna?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she glanced over her shoulder toward the darkened street, as if weighing whether or not to trust him with the truth. The silence between them stretched on for what felt like an eternity before she spoke again, her voice barely a murmur. "I don't have anyone." The words hit him harder than he expected. Xander stood frozen for a moment, his mind racing as he processed the weight of her response. A child, alone, in the cold, with nothing but a crumpled letter and a story no one seemed to believe. For a brief second, the walls he had so carefully built around himself cracked, and something resembling empathy flickered inside him. Before he could respond, the door to his mansion creaked open, and Rachel's voice called out from the warmth of the house. "Xander, where are you going?" But Xander's attention was no longer on her voice. His gaze was locked on Anna, and in that moment, he knew that something had to change. The life he had built, the world of privilege and wealth, had never prepared him for this, for Anna, and as the cold wind blew stronger, Xander's mind made up, though he couldn't yet understand the full extent of what was about to unfold. Xander Pierce stood there, his gaze fixed on the little girl Anna, as she held her crumpled letter close to her chest. He could still feel the shock of her words echoing in his mind. "I don't have anyone." It was a simple statement, but it hit him harder than anything he had heard in a long time. The snow continued to fall, the world around them silent except for the sound of the wind. For a moment, Xander wasn't sure what to do. His feet felt heavy, like they were glued to the ground, as he took in the small, fragile figure before him. A little girl, standing alone in the cold, with nothing but a letter from someone he didn't know, and a story that made no sense. Anna wasn't asking for charity or sympathy. She wasn't crying, or begging for anything. She was simply existing in the moment, as if she had no choice but to endure it. Xander's mind raced, but his body remained still. "Where do you live, Anna?" he asked, his voice softer than before. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she glanced back over her shoulder, her eyes filled with uncertainty. It was clear she wasn't ready to trust him completely. Xander took a step forward, his voice gentle but firm. "You don't have to be afraid. I'm not going to hurt you. I just want to help." For a long moment, Anna said nothing, her small figure shivering in the cold. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't have a home. I stay where I can." The words felt like a punch to Xander's gut. He had known that the city was full of hardship, but he had never seen it so close, so raw. The reality of Anna's situation began to settle in his mind, a gnawing ache that wouldn't go away. He looked down at her worn-out clothes, her small, trembling hands clutching the letter as if it was the only thing that mattered to her. "What happened to your family?" he asked, trying to understand, though the question felt too big for such a small child. Anna bit her lip, clearly conflicted about how much to say. She looked up at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and defiance. "My mom, she's sick. She can't take care of me anymore," she whispered, her voice shaking. "I don't know where my dad is. I've been looking for him, but he's not here." The words stung, even though Xander had never met this child before. He could hear the pain in her voice, the quiet desperation of a child who had been let down by the very people who were supposed to protect her. "I'm sorry," Xander said, his voice catching slightly as he felt the weight of her words. He didn't know how to respond, didn't know what to say to make it better. "You're cold. You shouldn't be out here alone." Anna didn't answer, but Xander could see the way her shoulders trembled in the freezing night air. His mind made up in that moment. "Come inside," he said, his tone firm. "You can't stay out here. It's too cold." Anna hesitated, her eyes flicking back to the mansion behind him. "I can't," she said quietly, taking a step back. "I don't want to be a bother." Xander could see the pride in her eyes, the same pride that kept her from asking for help, even when she desperately needed it. "You're not a bother," he said, his voice softening. "Come inside. I won't let you stay out here in the cold." There was a pause, and then, slowly, Anna took a step forward. "Okay," she said, almost in a whisper. "Thank you." Xander nodded, his heart heavy with the weight of the situation. He didn't know what had led this little girl to stand in front of him, but he knew one thing for sure. He couldn't let her go back to whatever life she had been living before. He guided her into the warmth of the mansion, the contrast between the cold outside and the warmth inside almost overwhelming. As they entered, Xander led her to a comfortable seat by the fire, the heat wrapping around her like a blanket. Anna looked around, her eyes wide with disbelief. This place was so different from anything she had ever known. "You're safe now," Xander said, watching her closely as she sat down, still unsure of what to do. He could see the wariness in her eyes, the hesitation to accept help, but also the relief that came with finally being inside, out of the cold. "I'll get you something to eat. Just relax for a moment." As he turned to leave, Anna's voice stopped him. "Why are you helping me?" she asked, her tone filled with confusion. Xander paused, looking back at her, unsure of how to explain the feeling that had taken hold of him. "Because no one should have to be out there alone," he said quietly, his voice steady. "Everyone deserves to feel safe." He turned away, but not before he saw the small, tentative smile that tugged at the corner of Anna's lips. It was a fragile thing, but it was there. As Xander walked into the kitchen, he couldn't help but think that this moment, this encounter with Anna, had changed something in him. It wasn't just about offering a warm place to stay or a hot meal. It was about something deeper. Something that had been missing from his life for far too long. Xander Pierce paced the kitchen, the soft hum of the refrigerator the only sound breaking the quiet of the grand mansion. He couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled deep within him after bringing Anna inside. He had never expected his night to turn out like this, never imagined that he would be standing in his own home, wondering how to help a little girl who had nothing. She had no family, no home, no one to turn to, and yet, here she was, sitting in his living room, a place that should have felt like safety, but to her, it was a world so foreign she didn't seem to know how to exist within it. He had told her to relax, but as he set the kettle on the stove to boil, he could see the tension in her body, the way she fidgeted in her seat by the fire, as if unsure of how to behave in a place so far removed from her reality. The grandiose surroundings of his home seemed to intimidate her. her small form dwarfed by the luxurious furniture and the warmth of the room. He didn't know what to say, how to make her feel at ease. He hadn't planned for this. I don't know what you're supposed to say to someone like her, he thought to himself, running a hand through his hair. He couldn't stop thinking about her small, worn-out shoes, the thin coat she had on, and the sadness in her eyes when she spoke about her mother. Xander had been privileged his whole life, surrounded by wealth and luxury, but he had never once considered what it would be like to not have a place to call home, to not have someone to turn to when the world seemed too big and too cold. As the kettle whistled, he poured water into a mug, then added a tea bag, his hands steady as he tried to focus on the task at hand. He needed to give her something, anything, that would make her feel like she wasn't alone in the world. Anna shifted in her seat, her gaze flicking nervously to the door, then back to the flames in the fireplace. Xander could see the way her hands gripped the letter tightly, as if it was the only thing holding her together. "Anna," he began, his voice softer than before, "can I ask you something?" She looked up at him, her dark eyes wide with curiosity. "Where did you live before this? Before tonight?" He saw her hesitate, as though weighing her words carefully. It was clear she didn't want to relive whatever had led her to this point. But after a long pause, she spoke. I used to live with my mom," she said quietly, "but she got sick, and I couldn't stay there anymore." Her voice broke slightly, and Xander felt a pang of guilt. He had no idea how to comfort her, no real understanding of what she was going through. The wealth he had accumulated, the life he had built, had never taught him the right words for moments like these. "What happened to your dad?" he asked gently, almost as an afterthought. She swallowed hard, looking away for a moment, her face shadowed with grief. "I don't know," she replied. "He disappeared when I was little. I never saw him again." The sadness in her voice was palpable, and Xander felt his chest tighten. He wasn't sure what he had expected, but it certainly wasn't this. He thought about the way she had looked at him when they first met, the way she seemed so wary of any kind of kindness. "I don't want to be a bother," she had said earlier, and he had dismissed it as the hesitation of a child. But now he understood. She wasn't used to being helped, wasn't used to anyone caring enough to show concern. "You're not a bother," Xander said firmly, looking down at the tea in his hand. "No one should have to go through this alone, and you won't anymore." He set the mug down on the table in front of her and sat down opposite her, his eyes searching her face, trying to understand the weight of her words. She took the mug slowly, cradling it in her hands as though it was the most precious thing in the world. "You're safe now," he said quietly, hoping his words would bring some comfort. Anna nodded, though her eyes were still distant, as if her thoughts were elsewhere. The fire crackled softly in the background, the warmth of the room enveloping them both. "I don't have anywhere to go," Anna said suddenly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've been going from place to place, trying to find someone. But everyone just turns me away." The weight of her confession hung in the air, thick and heavy. Xander didn't know what to say at first. He had never known someone like Anna, someone who had been forced to navigate a world that had no place for her. "You don't have to worry about that anymore," he said finally, his voice steady. "You can stay here as long as you need to. I'll figure something out." Anna's eyes widened slightly, but she didn't say anything. She just sat there, her small fingers wrapped around the mug, staring into the fire. Xander couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something much bigger than either of them could understand. His life was about to change in ways he couldn't predict, and in that moment, he realized that it wasn't just Anna who needed help, it was him, too. The realization struck him like a wave, and he suddenly found himself questioning everything he had taken for granted. "I'm not sure what to do next," he thought to himself, but one thing was certain: he couldn't turn his back on her now. Xander sat down across from Anna, the weight of the silence between them filling the room. The fire crackled in the background, its warmth a stark contrast to the coldness that still lingered in his thoughts. He watched her as she slowly sipped her tea, her small fingers trembling ever so slightly as she held the cup. She was quiet, distant, as though her mind was far away, processing things Xander couldn't even begin to understand. The mansion, once a place of comfort and luxury for him, felt oddly suffocating now. It was as if everything in his life, all the wealth and success, had been irrelevant in the face of Anna's reality. She was a child, just a child who had been abandoned by the world, left to fend for herself in the cold streets, and he hadn't even noticed. How do you even begin to help someone like her? Xander thought, his gaze shifting between Anna's weary face and the quiet room around them. He had always been in control of his world, a world of power and prestige, but this was something completely different. He couldn't fix it with money, or with influence, or with anything he had at his disposal. This was about something far deeper. He cleared his throat, trying to steady his voice. Anna, he said gently, I know things have been tough for you, but you're safe now. You don't have to worry about where you're going to sleep tonight or where your next meal is coming from. I promise you that. Anna glanced up at him, her dark eyes filled with skepticism. Xander could see the uncertainty written all over her face. She had probably heard similar promises before, only to have them broken. He wasn't sure how to convince her that this time would be different. She had learned, over time, to distrust the world, and for good reason. Why are you helping me? She asked suddenly, her voice barely above a whisper. Her question hit Xander hard. It was simple, but it cut to the core of everything he was feeling. He hadn't planned to help her. He hadn't expected to be sitting here, in his mansion, with a young girl who had no family, no place to go. But here they were, and for reasons he couldn't fully explain, he couldn't turn her away. Because no one should be alone like this, Xander replied, his voice firm yet soft. Everyone deserves a chance, Anna. No one should have to live like you have. He stood up then, unable to sit still. He walked over to the window, looking out at the snow-covered grounds outside. The world seemed so quiet, so still, as if waiting for something to change. And yet, inside the mansion, everything felt different. The weight of his thoughts pressed down on him, the reality of Anna's situation weighing heavily on his heart. He turned back to her, trying to read her expression. Anna was still holding the cup, her eyes downcast. She hadn't said anything, but he could tell she was processing what he had just said. You don't have to stay here forever, but you're safe for now, Xander continued, his voice filled with a sincerity he hadn't realized he was capable of. You can stay here as long as you need to. I'll make sure you're taken care of. Anna finally looked up at him, and for the first time since they had met, Xander saw a flicker of something in her eyes. Hope, maybe, or the beginning of trust. It was so small, but it was there. I don't know what to say, Anna whispered, her voice uncertain. You don't have to say anything, Xander replied quickly, walking back over to her. Just know that you're not alone anymore, and that you don't have to hide anymore. You're safe here. Anna's lips trembled as if she wanted to say something, but the words wouldn't come. Xander could see the internal struggle playing out behind her eyes. She had spent so much of her life hiding, surviving, just trying to make it through each day, that asking for help, accepting help, was the hardest thing she could do. And yet, here she was. You've been so strong, Anna, he said softly. You've done more than anyone could ever ask, but now it's my turn to help you. For a long moment, neither of them said anything. The only sound in the room was the crackling of the fire, and Xander could feel the tension slowly start to lift. He didn't know what would happen next. He didn't know what his life, or Anna's, would look like in the days or weeks to come. But in that moment, he knew one thing for certain: he couldn't walk away. Not now. Not after seeing the pain in her eyes, the quiet strength that had kept her going all this time. I'll make sure you're okay, Xander promised, though he wasn't sure how, or what he would need to do. But as he said the words, he felt something inside him shift. It wasn't just a promise to Anna, it was a promise to himself, too. He was no longer the man who walked through life without questioning anything. He had seen something real, something raw, and he couldn't unsee it. And so, he would help Anna. Not because he had to, but because he wanted to. And for the first time in a long time, Xander felt a sense of purpose, something he had been searching for without even realizing it. Xander spent the next few days in a haze, trying to process the events that had unfolded so suddenly. The mansion, once a place of comfort and familiarity, now felt like a cold, empty shell. He had always prided himself on his control over every aspect of his life. But since Anna had entered his world, everything had shifted. He found himself questioning his actions, his choices, and, most of all, his purpose. Anna was settling in, but it was clear that she wasn't comfortable. She wasn't used to being taken care of, and every kind gesture Xander made was met with resistance. He couldn't blame her. She had lived a life where people had failed her, And now, here she was, stuck in a world that felt foreign and out of reach. The small moments of warmth between them were fleeting. At times, Anna would sit in front of the fireplace, her eyes distant, and Xander would catch himself staring at her, wondering how someone so small could carry so much pain. He knew that he couldn't fix everything overnight, but he was determined to help. He had to believe that even small steps could make a difference. Xander had started making calls, reaching out to people who could help with Anna's situation. He contacted a lawyer, someone who could look into her legal standing and see what could be done. He didn't have all the answers, but he was trying. Meanwhile, Anna continued to show little interest in the resources he was offering. She would eat the meals he provided, but her attention always wandered. She rarely spoke unless spoken to, and Xander couldn't help but wonder if she had ever been allowed to be a child. One evening, as Xander sat in his study, going over some paperwork, he heard the sound of footsteps behind him. He turned around to see Anna standing in the doorway, her eyes wide, as though she was unsure of whether she should enter. "Anna," Xander said gently, setting his pen down. "What's going on? You okay?" Anna hesitated before stepping into the room. She looked small in the grand doorway, her hands tucked into her worn sweater sleeves. "I don't want to stay here forever," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. The words stung, but Xander didn't let it show. He stood up and walked toward her, crouching slightly so they were at eye level. "You don't have to stay forever, but for now, this is a safe place for you," he said, his voice calm but firm. "You don't have to worry about anything. You're here to rest, to heal." Anna shook her head slowly. "I don't know how to stay. I don't know how to let you help me." Xander's heart clenched. He could feel the walls she had built around herself, and no matter how many times he tried to knock them down, they stayed strong. "It's okay," he said softly. "You don't have to know how to let me help. You just have to let me be here for you." There was a long pause, and Xander could see the conflict in Anna's eyes. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust him, but she didn't know how. "I'm scared," she admitted, her voice barely audible. "I don't know who to trust anymore." Xander's chest tightened. He had known she was scared, but hearing her say it out loud hit him harder than he expected. "I understand," he said, stepping closer. "It's okay to be scared. You don't have to trust me all at once, but you can start with one thing you can trust, that I'll always be here when you need me." Anna looked at him for a long time, as though weighing his words. Finally, she nodded, a tiny movement, but enough for Xander to feel the shift. It wasn't much, but it was a start. "I'll try," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Xander smiled, feeling a sense of relief wash over him. It wasn't much, but it was progress. He could see a glimmer of hope in her eyes, a faint sign that she was starting to believe that not everyone would let her down. "That's all I'm asking," he said gently. "Just take it one step at a time." Over the next few days, Xander continued his efforts to make Anna feel at home, even though he knew it wouldn't happen overnight. He enrolled her in a local school, just to give her a sense of normalcy, and made arrangements for her to see a counselor, someone who could help her process everything she had been through. Anna, to his surprise, agreed to both. She didn't talk much about the past, but she was willing to try, and that, Xander thought, was all that mattered. As the days turned into weeks, Xander began to see small changes in Anna. She started spending more time in the common areas of the house, sitting with him while he worked, occasionally offering a comment or asking a question. Her silence wasn't gone, but it wasn't as heavy. She was slowly opening up, piece by piece. One evening, as they sat together in the living room, Xander watched Anna as she played with a puzzle on the coffee table. She was focused, her brow furrowed in concentration, but for the first time, she wasn't distant. She wasn't lost in her thoughts. She was present, and that, to Xander, was a victory. The journey ahead would be long, he knew that. But for the first time, he felt like they were on the right path. The mansion, once cold and empty, now felt like a place of healing. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, and it was theirs. Xander stood by the window, his eyes focused on the snow falling gently outside, the world beyond the mansion shrouded in a quiet calm. Inside, the fire crackled in the hearth, casting a warm glow that contrasted with the coldness of the night. Anna had come a long way since she first arrived. But the change, although significant, was still fragile. She wasn't the same guarded, distant girl who had hesitated to accept his help. Now, she was starting to find her way, inch by inch, but Xander knew that every step forward came with its own challenges. He had seen her smile more often lately, even if it was a small, fleeting thing. And she was talking more, not just to him, but to the few people who came into the house. The difference was subtle, but it was there. Her past, however, continued to linger. There were moments when she would drift off, her thoughts clearly elsewhere, her mind tangled in memories she wasn't ready to share. Xander respected that. He wasn't going to force her to speak about things she wasn't ready to revisit. But he could see the walls she had built, and as much as she was opening up, there were still pieces of her that remained locked away. One afternoon, as Xander worked from his office, he received a call that would change everything. The lawyer he had contacted earlier about Anna's situation had some news. "Xander," the lawyer said on the other end of the line, "I've been looking into her case. It's complicated, but there is a way to legally claim guardianship." Xander's heart quickened as he listened. He knew that giving Anna stability meant more than just offering her a place to stay. It meant making sure she had a future, a chance at something more than the life she had left behind. "What do we need to do?" Xander asked, his voice firm. "There are a few steps to take," the lawyer explained, "but it'll require some time, and you'll need to make it official." "I can do that," Xander said, his decision made. As the call ended, he felt a weight lift off his shoulders, replaced by a sense of purpose. For the first time since meeting Anna, he had a clear plan. He was going to fight for her, not just as a temporary shelter, but as a real home, a place where she could finally build a future. Xander knew it wouldn't be easy. There would be paperwork, meetings, and legal hurdles to jump through, but he was ready. He wasn't going to let Anna slip through his fingers, not after everything she had been through. He knew that the journey ahead was going to be long, but it was one he was committed to. The next morning, he sat down with Anna over breakfast, his mind still racing from the news. "I have something to tell you," he began, his voice steady. Anna looked up at him from her cereal, her eyes curious. "What is it?" she asked, her voice soft. Xander smiled, feeling a warmth spread through him. "I've spoken to a lawyer," he said, leaning forward slightly. "We're going to make things official. I'm going to take care of you, Anna. You don't have to worry about anything anymore." For a moment, Anna didn't say anything. She just stared at him, her expression unreadable. Xander could see the confusion in her eyes, the hesitation, and for a moment, he thought she might pull away. But then, something shifted. Slowly, Anna set her spoon down and met his gaze. "You mean it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "You're really going to take care of me?" Xander nodded, his heart swelling with an emotion he wasn't ready to name. "Yes," he said firmly. "I'm not going anywhere, and neither are you. You're part of this family now." Anna's eyes glistened, and Xander could see the struggle within her. For so long, she had been on her own, relying on no one but herself. The idea of someone truly caring for her, someone promising to take care of her, seemed almost impossible. But Xander knew that the only way for Anna to heal was if she let herself believe that she deserved it. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Thank you for not giving up on me." Xander reached across the table and placed his hand on hers. It was a simple gesture, but it meant the world to him. "I'm never giving up on you, Anna," he said softly. "You're safe now." Over the next few weeks, the legal process began. Xander took Anna to meet with the lawyer, explaining every step of the process to her as best as he could. He knew it was a lot to take in, and he saw the anxiety in her eyes at every new document they signed. But he was there, every step of the way, guiding her through it all. Anna's trust in him grew, bit by bit. She began to open up more, telling him small pieces of her story, pieces that, until now, she had kept locked away. She told him about her mother's illness, about the foster homes she had been in, and about the fear she had felt every time she was moved from one place to the next. It wasn't easy for her to talk about, but Xander was patient. He didn't push her to say anything more than she was ready to. Every time she shared something with him, he felt closer to her, and he could see the weight lifting from her shoulders, even if just a little. As the days went by, Anna's confidence grew. She started helping around the house more, asking questions about Xander's work, and even making small jokes that made him laugh. She wasn't the same frightened girl who had arrived on his doorstep months ago. She was becoming someone new, someone with hope. Xander knew the journey wasn't over. There would be more challenges ahead, more hurdles to overcome, but for the first time in a long time, he felt like they were on the right path. He had made a promise to Anna, and he was going to keep it. She was no longer just a little girl he had taken in. She was part of his life now, and he would do whatever it took to make sure she had the future she deserved. Xander sat in his study, staring at the stack of paperwork in front of him. The legal process for guardianship had been long, but they were nearing the end. He had done everything he could to make sure Anna was safe, to ensure that she had a future outside of the life she had known. He had worked tirelessly with the lawyer, getting everything in place so that Anna could finally have the security she deserved. But as much as he wanted to celebrate the progress they had made, he couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was missing. It was hard to pinpoint exactly what it was, but the weight of it lingered. He glanced over at Anna's room, where she had been spending more and more time lately. It was strange to think about how far she had come since the first day she had stepped foot into this house. She was no longer the frightened little girl who had stood in the cold, clutching that crumpled letter. She had grown more confident, more comfortable in her surroundings. She even started to speak more, engaging with the people who came into the house, asking questions, and sometimes even cracking a smile. But Xander could still see the distance in her eyes. Despite everything he had done, despite all the promises he had made, there was still a part of her that was holding back. It wasn't easy for him to accept, but he knew that healing wasn't something that could be forced. It would take time. It was late one evening when Anna came to find him. Xander was sitting in his favorite armchair, a book in hand, but his attention was elsewhere. He looked up as he heard the soft sound of footsteps approaching, his gaze falling on Anna as she stood in the doorway of the study. "Hey," he said, setting the book down. "What's up?" Anna hesitated for a moment, then stepped inside. She looked different tonight, as if something had shifted in her. Her eyes were filled with a mixture of determination and uncertainty. "Can I talk to you?" she asked, her voice steady, though it held a trace of vulnerability. Xander nodded, motioning for her to sit down. "Of course. What's on your mind?" She took a seat across from him, her hands clasped in her lap. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Xander waited, sensing that Anna was working through something in her mind. Finally, she spoke, her voice soft but clear. "I've been thinking a lot about everything. About what you said. About how you're going to take care of me." She paused, her gaze dropping to the floor. "I don't know if I deserve it," she said quietly. The words hit Xander hard. He had known that Anna had struggled with accepting help, but hearing her say it out loud made it all the more real. "Of course you deserve it," Xander said gently, leaning forward in his chair. "You deserve a life where you're safe, where you don't have to worry every day. No one should have to live like you've lived." Anna looked up at him, her eyes searching his face. "But I don't know how to let anyone in," she admitted. "I've never had anyone who cared before. I've always been alone." Xander's heart ached at her words, but he didn't know how to make her see that she wasn't alone anymore. "You're not alone, Anna," he said softly. "You don't have to do this by yourself. I'm here for you, and I always will be." There was a long silence as Anna processed his words. She was still unsure, still hesitant to fully trust him, but Xander could see that she was starting to believe in the possibility of something different. "I want to try," Anna said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "I want to believe that I can have a better life, but it's hard." Xander smiled, a warm, reassuring smile. "It's okay," he said. "It's not going to be easy, but we'll take it one step at a time. You don't have to have it all figured out right now. Just take it one day at a time, and I'll be here to help you." Anna nodded slowly, her eyes softening. I think I can do that," she said quietly. The air between them felt lighter now, as if a small burden had been lifted. It wasn't much, but it was a step forward. Xander could see that Anna was starting to open up, starting to believe that she wasn't alone in the world. And for the first time, he felt a sense of peace. This was just the beginning of a long journey, but he knew they were on the right path. The next morning, Xander woke up early, the quiet of the house still intact as he moved through the kitchen. He found Anna sitting at the table, a bowl of cereal in front of her, though she wasn't eating. She was lost in thought, staring out the window at the snowy landscape. "Hey," Xander said as he poured himself a cup of coffee. "How's it going?" Anna turned to look at him, her face breaking into a small, tentative smile. "I'm okay," she said. "Just thinking." Xander nodded, sensing that there was still a lot she wasn't saying, but he knew that would come in time. For now, he was content with the progress they had made. "Well," he said with a small smile, "if you're up for it, I was thinking we could go out today. Maybe see a movie or get lunch. Just the two of us." Anna raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised by the suggestion. "You want to spend the day with me?" she asked, as if the idea was foreign to her. Xander laughed softly, his voice warm. "Of course I do," he said. "You're part of my life now, and I want to be there for you, no matter what." Anna's expression softened, and for the first time in a long while, she seemed to relax. "Okay," she said quietly. "I'd like that." And in that moment, Xander knew that things were slowly starting to change for the better. They weren't there yet, but they were getting closer, and that was enough for now. Xander and Anna sat in the cozy corner of the small cafe, the soft hum of conversation around them a far cry from the silence that had once surrounded their lives. It had been a few weeks since Anna had agreed to try, since she had begun to open up in her own way. Xander had been patient, giving her space, allowing her to move at her own pace. Today, as they sat together sipping their drinks, Xander could feel the change in the air. It wasn't just about the progress Anna had made. It was about the connection that was slowly forming between them, something real and lasting. Anna had been quieter than usual, and Xander had noticed. Her brow was furrowed as she stirred her coffee absent-mindedly, her gaze distant. He didn't want to push her, but he couldn't ignore the worry that had settled in his chest. "Is everything okay?" Xander asked softly, his voice gentle. Anna looked up at him, her eyes momentarily lost, as if she hadn't heard him. She blinked, then gave a small, forced smile. "Yeah, I'm fine," she replied, but her tone didn't match her words. Xander studied her for a moment, noticing the way her hands gripped the cup a little too tightly, as if she was trying to hold on to something. "You don't seem fine," he said, his voice soft but firm. "Is something bothering you?" Anna hesitated, then looked down at the table, her fingers tracing the rim of her cup. "It's just everything. I don't know if I'm ready for all of this," she said quietly. "I mean, I've been in so many different places, so many different homes, and nothing ever lasts. What if this is just another place where I don't belong?" Xander's heart ached at her words, but he didn't let it show. He knew this was part of the process, part of what Anna needed to work through. "You belong here, Anna," he said, his voice steady, with a certainty that came from deep within him. "You belong with me. This isn't just another place. This is home, and you're part of it now, for as long as you want to be." Anna looked up at him, her eyes searching his face, trying to gauge the truth in his words. She was still unsure, still uncertain, but Xander could see the vulnerability in her eyes. She had been let down so many times in her life that trusting him, trusting anyone, was harder than it should have been. "I don't know how to believe that," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I don't know how to let myself believe that I'm not going to lose it all again." Xander leaned forward, placing his hand gently over hers, his thumb brushing against her knuckles in a soothing gesture. "I understand," he said quietly. "You've been through a lot, Anna. But you don't have to do this alone. Not anymore." He could see the way her breath hitched, the way her shoulders tensed as if she was about to pull away, but she didn't. She stayed, her hand warm beneath his. For a moment, they sat there in silence, the weight of the conversation hanging between them. Xander didn't expect her to have all the answers, to suddenly trust him completely. But he knew that this moment, this conversation, was another step forward, and that was enough. Slowly, Anna lifted her head, meeting his gaze once more. "I want to believe you," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I really do, but it's hard." Xander nodded, his heart swelling with compassion for her. "I know it's hard," he said, "but you don't have to have it all figured out today. One step at a time, okay?" Anna looked at him for a long moment, her eyes searching his face for any sign of doubt. When she didn't find it, she nodded slowly. Okay, she said, her voice small but determined, one step at a time. As they finished their drinks, Xander couldn't help but feel a sense of pride in how far Anna had come. She was still hesitant, still guarded in some ways, but she was opening up in ways that Xander hadn't thought possible. It wasn't just the progress she was making, it was the fact that she was starting to believe that she deserved better, that she could have a future that wasn't defined by her past. Later that evening, as they returned to the mansion, Xander noticed that Anna seemed lighter, more at ease. She still had a long way to go, but she was taking those small steps, and that was all that mattered. The following days were a mixture of progress and setbacks, but Xander was patient. He continued to support Anna, offering encouragement when she needed it, and giving her space when she asked for it. He understood now that her healing couldn't be rushed. It wasn't just about fixing her situation, it was about giving her the time and space she needed to heal, to trust, and to find her way in this new life. One afternoon, as Xander returned home from a meeting, he found Anna sitting in the living room, looking out the window. It was a small thing, but Xander noticed the way she was sitting. Her shoulders were more relaxed, her posture less guarded. She was no longer the same frightened girl who had stepped into his life months ago. She had started to embrace the possibility of a new life, even if it wasn't easy. "How was your day?" Xander asked, dropping his keys on the table as he walked over to her. Anna turned to him and smiled, a genuine smile that lit up her face. "It was good," she said. I think I'm starting to get the hang of this." Xander smiled back, his heart swelling with pride. "I think you are," he said softly. And in that moment, Xander knew that the journey ahead would still have its challenges, but they were ready to face them together. They had come so far, and there was no turning back now. Xander had been working late, sitting in his office reviewing documents when he heard a soft knock on the door. He looked up from the papers, noticing that it was already past midnight. He hadn't realized how much time had passed. Anna had been in her room for most of the evening, but he could sense a change in the air. She had been quieter than usual, and he couldn't shake the feeling that something was on her mind. "Come in," Xander called out, setting the papers aside. The door creaked open slowly, and Anna stepped into the room, her eyes soft but filled with something more, something like determination. She was standing there in the doorway, her posture a little tense, but the moment she met his gaze, Xander could see the uncertainty in her eyes. "Hey," Xander said gently, pushing back from the desk. "What's on your mind?" Anna hesitated for a moment, her fingers nervously twisting together in front of her. I need to talk to you about something," she said quietly, her voice steady but hesitant. Xander motioned to the chair in front of his desk. "Of course," he replied, his voice warm. "Come sit." She nodded and slowly made her way over, taking a seat. Xander could see the way she held herself, as though she was gathering the courage to say something important. "I've been thinking a lot," Anna began, her voice small but firm. "About everything, about staying here, about what you've done for me." She paused for a moment, looking down at her hands, then back up at him. "And I think I'm ready." Xander raised an eyebrow, not quite understanding. "Ready for what?" he asked, his curiosity piqued. Anna took a deep breath before continuing, her words coming out in a rush. "I'm ready to trust you, to let you help me. I don't want to keep pushing you away. I know I've been holding back, but I can't keep doing that. You've been so good to me, and I think I need to stop being afraid." Xander's heart swelled with emotion as he listened to her. He had known that Anna's trust would take time, that she would need to process everything before she could fully let go of her fears. But hearing her say those words, hearing her express her willingness to open up, was a breakthrough. It was a moment he had been waiting for, even though he hadn't realized how badly he needed it until now. "Anna," Xander said, his voice thick with emotion, "you don't have to be afraid anymore. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. You're safe." He stood up and walked around the desk, kneeling in front of her so that they were eye to eye. "You've done the hardest part. You've taken that first step, and I'm so proud of you." Anna looked up at him, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. For the first time, Xander saw the weight she had been carrying, the years of pain, of uncertainty, of surviving without anyone to turn to. But now, in this moment, she was letting herself believe that she could have something different, that she could have a future. Xander gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "You're not alone in this," he said softly. "I'll be here every step of the way." Anna's lips trembled as she looked up at him, and for the first time, Xander saw her smile, small but genuine. It was the kind of smile that made his heart soar, knowing that they were getting closer to something real. Anna took a deep breath and nodded. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Thank you for believing in me." Xander smiled back, his heart full. "I always will." They sat there for a few moments in silence, both of them letting the weight of the conversation settle between them. Xander had always believed that actions spoke louder than words, but tonight, in this small, quiet moment, he realized that sometimes words could be just as powerful. Over the next few days, things began to change. Anna started to engage more, asking questions about Xander's work, offering help with the house, and even making small talk with the staff who came by. It wasn't much, but it was a start. She was beginning to trust again, beginning to believe that she was worthy of care and kindness. Xander could see the shift in her, and it filled him with a quiet pride. But there were still moments of hesitation. There were days when Anna would retreat back into herself, her gaze distant, her body language closed off. Xander understood, though. He knew it wasn't going to be a smooth, straight path. Healing wasn't linear. It would take time, and that was okay. As long as she was taking those steps forward, as long as she was allowing herself to believe in the possibility of a better future, that was enough. One evening, after dinner, Xander found himself sitting by the fire with Anna. She had been quiet all night, and he could sense that something was on her mind. "Anna," he said, his voice gentle, "how are you doing?" "Really?" Anna didn't answer right away, but after a long pause, she looked up at him. "I'm scared," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know what's going to happen next, and it feels like I'm walking on a tightrope. What if I fall?" Xander took her hand in his, offering her the comfort of his presence. "I won't let you fall, Anna. You've got me now, and I'm not going anywhere." The room was quiet, save for the soft crackling of the fire. Anna didn't say anything else, but she squeezed his hand, a small gesture that spoke volumes. Xander knew they had a long road ahead of them, but in that moment, he knew that together, they could face anything. Xander awoke to a crisp morning, the sun casting long shadows across the sprawling estate. The events of the past few months had unfolded like a whirlwind, and though he had witnessed many changes in Anna, today felt different. He could feel the change in the air, a sense of quiet anticipation that hung between them. Anna had made so much progress, but there were still parts of her story left untold. They had come so far together, yet something told him that today would be the day that everything truly started to shift. As he made his way downstairs, he found Anna sitting by the window, the soft morning light illuminating her face. She was lost in thought, her fingers gently tracing the rim of a mug that had long since gone cold. Her silence had become a familiar part of their routine, but today, it felt like there was more to it. Xander hesitated for a moment, unsure of how to approach her. It had become clear that Anna was ready to open up, but he also knew that this process would take time. He respected her boundaries and gave her the space she needed, but today felt like the moment when those boundaries would shift. "Morning," he said softly, breaking the silence. Anna turned to him, her eyes meeting his. For a brief moment, there was hesitation, then a small, tentative smile. "Morning," she replied quietly. Xander sat down across from her, sensing that she was on the verge of saying something important. "How are you feeling?" he asked gently. Anna looked down at her hands for a moment before meeting his gaze again. "I've been thinking," she said slowly, her voice still carrying a trace of uncertainty. "About everything. About us. About what it means for me to be here." Xander nodded, his expression calm, but his heart quickened. He knew this conversation was coming. It was inevitable. He had been waiting for Anna to reach this point, but now that it was here, he realized just how much it meant. "What are you thinking?" he asked, his voice steady but filled with quiet curiosity. Anna took a deep breath before speaking, her words measured. "I don't know how to say this, but I think I'm ready," she said, her voice trembling ever so slightly. "I'm ready to be part of this, to let myself be part of your life. I know I've been distant, and I've pushed you away at times, but I don't want to do that anymore. I want to be here, with you." The words hung in the air between them, and for a moment, Xander didn't know what to say. The vulnerability in Anna's voice was raw, and the weight of it settled over him like a gentle storm. He had been waiting for this, but hearing it out loud was different. It was real. "Anna," he said softly, his voice thick with emotion, "you don't have to be afraid anymore. I'm not going anywhere, and neither are you." A few silent moments passed, and Xander could see the conflict in Anna's eyes. There was still that uncertainty, that lingering fear that this could all slip away. He knew it wasn't going to be easy for her to fully trust again. She had spent so many years on her own, so many years learning to survive without relying on anyone. But Xander also knew that this was a huge step for her. "I want to believe you," Anna said quietly, her voice wavering. "I really do, but I've been hurt before. I don't know how to trust, how to believe in something like this." Xander reached across the table and gently took her hand in his. He could feel the coolness of her skin, but there was a warmth in his touch that he hoped would reach her. "I understand," he said softly. "It's not easy, Anna, but I'm here, and I always will be. Trust isn't something that happens overnight, but I'll be patient. I'll be here for you, no matter what." Anna stared at their hands for a moment, her fingers curling slightly around his. "I'm scared," she whispered. "Scared that I'll mess this up. Scared that I'll ruin everything." Xander's heart ached for her. He could feel her fear, her doubt, but he wasn't going to let it consume her. "You don't have to do it perfectly," he said gently. "You just have to try, and I'll be here every step of the way." Slowly, Anna nodded, her grip on his hand tightening just a little. "Okay," she said, her voice small but filled with resolve. "I'll try." Xander smiled, a warmth spreading through him. He had seen Anna grow so much already. But this was the moment when he knew she was truly starting to believe in herself. Over the next few weeks, things began to shift between them. Anna started to open up more, not just with Xander but with others around her. She had begun spending more time with the staff, helping in the kitchen, offering to assist with various tasks around the house. It was subtle, but Xander noticed the difference. She wasn't as withdrawn as she used to be. It was a small thing, but it was progress. One afternoon, Xander found himself walking through the gardens, enjoying the fresh air when he spotted Anna in the distance. She was sitting on a bench, sketching something in her notebook. He had noticed her drawing before, but this time, there was a new sense of focus in her movements, a sense of calm that he hadn't seen before. "What are you working on?" Xander asked as he approached. Anna looked up, her face lighting up with a smile. "It's just something I started drawing," she said, her voice light. "I don't know if it's any good, but it helps me clear my mind." Xander sat down next to her, glancing at the page. It was a drawing of a tree, its branches stretching wide against a backdrop of mountains. There was a quiet strength in it, a sense of growth and resilience. "I think it's beautiful," Xander said, his voice filled with admiration. "It's you," he added softly. Anna looked at him, her smile growing a little wider. "I don't know if I'm there yet," she said, "but I want to be. I want to grow. I want to be strong, like that tree." Xander's heart swelled. It wasn't just the drawing that moved him, it was the fact that Anna was beginning to see herself in that light. For the first time, she was starting to believe that she could be strong, that she could have a future that was her own. "You already are," Xander said quietly, his voice full of pride. "You've come so far, Anna." As they sat there, the warmth of the sun on their faces, Xander knew that they had only just begun. The road ahead would still be difficult, but together, they could face whatever came next. He had promised Anna that he would always be there for her, and with each passing day, he knew that promise was more than just words. It was a bond that was growing stronger. Anna was no longer the scared, lonely girl she once was. She was finding her way, and Xander would be there every step of the way. Xander stood by the window, his thoughts swirling like the wind outside. It had been months since Anna had first come into his life, and in that time, they had both changed. The mansion, once a cold, empty place, now felt like home. Anna had come so far, yet Xander knew they weren't done yet. She was still finding her way, learning to trust, and learning to believe in a future where she wasn't alone. Xander had watched her grow, seen her step out of her shell little by little, and it filled him with pride. But today, there was something different in the air. A new level of understanding was beginning to form between them. Anna was no longer just the girl who had arrived on his doorstep with nothing. She was becoming someone strong, someone with her own dreams, and that made all the difference. He glanced over at the clock, realizing it was late afternoon. The sun was beginning to dip behind the trees, casting long shadows across the yard. He hadn't seen Anna all day, which was unusual. He knew she had been spending more time with her drawing, but today, he felt an unexpected pull to check in on her. He walked down the hallway and knocked gently on Anna's door before opening it. She was sitting at the desk, sketching as usual, but today, there was something different about her. Her posture was straighter, more confident. There was a quiet intensity in her expression as she focused on the paper in front of her. Xander stood there for a moment, just watching her. It was clear that she was in her element, lost in the world of her art. After a few moments, Anna looked up, her eyes meeting his. She offered a small smile, one that was genuine and full of warmth. "Hey," she said softly, her voice calm and steady. "What's up?" Xander smiled back, stepping into the room and sitting down across from her. "I just wanted to check in," he said, his tone gentle. "How are you doing?" Anna hesitated for a moment, then put her pencil down and looked at him. "I'm okay," she said, but her voice held a layer of something more. "I've been thinking." "About what?" Xander asked. His curiosity piqued. Anna took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts before speaking. "About how far I've come, and how much I've changed since I got here." Xander nodded, watching her carefully. "You've come a long way, Anna," he said quietly. "I've seen you grow in ways I never thought possible." Anna smiled again, but this time, it was a little sadder. "It's just, I still feel like there's so much I need to figure out. Like, what do I do now? Where do I go from here?" Xander felt a pang of sympathy for her. He knew that the journey ahead wouldn't be easy, that the road to fully healing would take time, but he also knew that she was more than capable of finding her way. "You don't have to have all the answers right now," he said, his voice reassuring. "You're still figuring things out, and that's okay. You've already come so far." Anna nodded, but her brow furrowed slightly. "It's just, sometimes I still feel like I don't belong here, like I'm just waiting for it all to fall apart." Xander reached across the desk and took her hand, his grip steady and warm. "You do belong here," he said firmly. "You're part of this family now, Anna, and we're not going anywhere." Anna looked at him, her eyes searching his face for any hint of doubt, but all she found was sincerity. She sighed, looking down at their hands. "I want to believe that," she whispered, "but it's hard to let go of all the fear." Xander's heart ached for her. He could see the fear still holding her back, the fear of being let down, of losing everything again. But he also saw how far she had come. She was learning to trust, to open up, to accept love in ways she never had before. "I know it's hard," Xander said softly, "but you don't have to do it alone. You've got me, and you've got this family. You're not just a visitor here, Anna. You're home." Anna's eyes filled with unshed tears as she looked up at him, her expression one of vulnerability and quiet relief. For the first time, Xander saw her as more than just a survivor. He saw her as someone with real strength, someone who had fought through so much to get to this point. "I don't know what I would have done without you," Anna said, her voice trembling. "I don't know if I ever would have believed that I could have a life like this." Xander squeezed her hand gently. "You did all the hard work, Anna. You've come so far on your own. I just gave you a place to feel safe." Anna gave a shaky laugh, wiping away a tear. "I guess I've been afraid to hope," she said quietly, "but you've shown me that it's okay to want something better." Xander smiled, feeling a sense of pride swelling in his chest. "You deserve everything that's good, Anna, and I'll be here to help you get there." Anna stood up slowly, moving toward the window. She gazed out at the yard, her eyes distant, but this time, her expression was one of quiet determination. "I think I'm ready," she said softly, more to herself than to him. "I'm ready to believe that I can have a future." Xander stood up and walked over to her, standing by her side. "You don't have to have it all figured out today," he said gently. But you're already on the right path, and I'll be right here with you." Anna looked at him, her eyes shining with a new kind of hope, and for the first time, Xander saw her as the person she was becoming, not just the person she had been. She was no longer the girl who had come into his life with nothing. She was someone strong, someone who could face whatever came next. They had both come a long way, and there was still a long road ahead. But Xander knew that together, they could face it all. As Anna turned back toward the window, Xander's heart swelled with a quiet hope. This was just the beginning, and no matter what happened next, they would face it as a family. Xander sat at his desk, the weight of the moment settling over him like a thick fog. It had been a few weeks since Anna had expressed her desire to fully embrace this new life, to trust him, and the promise of a future that was no longer defined by her past. She was beginning to take small steps, but Xander knew that there were still many obstacles ahead. Anna was strong, but she was also fragile, and the scars of her past would not fade overnight. Still, he had seen a shift in her. She was no longer the girl who had walked into his life with no hope, no trust, and no sense of belonging. She was beginning to find her place in the world, a place where she could feel safe, loved, and, most importantly, accepted. Xander had kept his promise to her to never give up and to stand by her side no matter what. He could see the growth in her, the way she was beginning to open up to the world again. But as much as Anna had changed, Xander couldn't help but wonder about his own role in this journey. He had been a constant in her life, offering support, love, and patience. But the question remained: was he doing enough? Was he truly helping her heal, or was he simply enabling her to stay in a place of comfort without pushing her to face the deeper fears she still carried? Xander shook his head, pushing the thought aside. He knew he was doing everything he could, and the fact that Anna had made it this far was proof of that. She had faced unimaginable challenges, and now she was beginning to see that her past did not have to define her future. He stood up from his desk and walked over to the window, staring out at the expansive grounds of the estate. The world outside was calm, peaceful. But Xander knew that life wasn't always so serene. There were battles to be fought, and Anna's was far from over. He knew that the day would come when she would need to confront the trauma of her past head-on, but he also knew that she wasn't ready for that yet. For now, he had to focus on what he could do to help her in the present. As he stood there, lost in thought, he heard a soft knock on the door. He turned around to see Anna standing in the doorway, her expression hesitant, but her eyes filled with something more, something like determination. "Hey," she said quietly, her voice unsure. "Can we talk?" Xander smiled warmly and gestured for her to come in. "Of course. What's on your mind?" Anna stepped into the room, but she hesitated before sitting down. She was still the same Anna in many ways, the girl who had learned to keep her distance, who had been conditioned to guard her heart. But Xander could see the changes in her. Her posture was a little straighter now, her expression a little more open. She wasn't the same girl who had walked into his life months ago. "I've been thinking a lot," Anna began, her voice soft but steady, "about everything." Xander listened carefully, sensing the weight of her words. "About what?" he asked, his voice gentle, wanting to make sure she felt safe to share whatever was on her mind. Anna took a deep breath before continuing. "About the future. About where I go from here." Xander felt a pang of concern, but he didn't interrupt her. He wanted her to speak freely, to know that she could express her fears without judgment. "I know I've come a long way," Anna said, her voice filled with a mix of gratitude and uncertainty. "But there's still so much I don't understand, so much I don't know how to handle." Xander nodded. "It's okay," he said softly. "You don't have to have all the answers. This isn't a race, Anna. You don't need to figure it all out right now." Anna smiled faintly, but it was a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I know," she replied quietly, "but I don't want to be stuck in this place forever. I want to move forward, but I'm scared of what that means." Xander could see the fear in her eyes, the fear that had held her back for so long. But now, it was mixed with something new: hope for a future she never thought possible. "What are you scared of?" Xander asked gently, leaning forward slightly. Anna hesitated before speaking, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm scared of failing," she admitted, of trusting again, of opening up, and then having it all fall apart. The vulnerability in her words hit Xander hard. He could feel the weight of her past, the pain of betrayal and loss that still haunted her. But he also knew that Anna was stronger than she realized. She had already proven that to him and to herself. "I know you're scared," Xander said softly, "but you're not alone in this. You don't have to do it by yourself. You've come so far already, Anna. You've proven that you're capable of more than you think." Anna looked up at him, her eyes searching his face. She was silent for a moment before she spoke again, her voice filled with a quiet determination. "I want to keep trying. I want to face my fears, even if it's hard." Xander's heart swelled with pride. He had known that Anna had the strength to face whatever challenges came her way, but hearing her say it out loud was a different kind of confirmation. She was ready to take the next step. "That's all I can ask for," Xander said gently. "You don't have to have it all figured out, but you're not in this alone. I'm here, and I always will be." Anna smiled. A real smile this time, one that was filled with warmth and hope. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion, "for everything." Xander stood up and walked over to her, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. "You've done all the hard work, Anna," he said softly. "Now, it's time to keep moving forward, one step at a time." Anna nodded, a sense of calm settling over her. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she was ready to face whatever came next, and Xander knew that no matter what, they would face it together. Xander stood at the doorway of the living room, watching as Anna sat on the couch, her sketchbook open in her lap. It had become a familiar sight, the two of them in this space, Anna drawing and Xander reflecting on the progress they had made. There had been moments of doubt, of course, the fear that maybe, just maybe, the progress they had worked so hard for would come crashing down. But over the past few weeks, Anna had proven herself time and time again. She was stronger than anyone had ever given her credit for. As Anna worked, Xander admired the way her hand moved across the page, her concentration evident in every stroke. There was something about watching her create that fascinated him. It wasn't just about the art. It was about the way she was starting to open up, express herself, and put pieces of her life into something tangible. Anna had begun to talk more, share little snippets of her past, her fears, and her dreams. It was slow, but it was progress, and Xander cherished every moment of it. "How's it going?" Xander asked, breaking the silence. Anna didn't look up immediately, but the corners of her mouth lifted slightly, acknowledging his presence. "It's going," she said, her voice soft but steady. "I think I'm getting better at it." She glanced up at him, her eyes bright with something that wasn't there before: hope. "I've been thinking about what comes next." After all of this, Xander furrowed his brow. "What do you mean?" he asked, stepping into the room and sitting beside her on the couch. Anna hesitated for a moment, her eyes dropping to the sketchbook again. "I've been thinking about school, about my future," she said slowly. "I know it's a lot to consider, and I don't want to rush it, but I feel like I'm ready to move forward, to start thinking about what I want in life, outside of just surviving." Xander felt a wave of pride rush through him. It wasn't just the idea of her pursuing her future, it was the realization that Anna was finally allowing herself to dream again. For so long, she had only been focused on getting through the day, but now, she was thinking beyond that. "Anna," Xander said, his voice warm with pride, "I think that's amazing, and I want you to know that whatever you choose, I'll be here to help you every step of the way." Anna turned to him, her eyes filled with gratitude and a touch of vulnerability. "I don't even know where to start," she admitted. "Everything feels so overwhelming, but for the first time, I feel like I'm in control of my life." Xander smiled and placed a hand on her shoulder. "One step at a time," he said softly. "We'll figure it out together." The days that followed were filled with more conversations about the future. Anna began to explore different options, researching schools, career paths, and hobbies that sparked her interest. It was a process, but with Xander's support, she was starting to build a vision for herself, one that was no longer shaped by her past, but by the possibilities of what lay ahead. One afternoon, as they sat together in the garden, Anna brought up something she had been thinking about for a while. "I've been wondering," she said, her voice thoughtful, "what would you have done if I hadn't come into your life? What if I had never shown up that day?" Xander looked at her, surprised by the question. He hadn't really thought about it before, not in any serious way. But as he thought about it now, he realized how much she had impacted him as well. I don't know, Xander admitted. I guess I never expected to have someone like you in my life. You've changed everything for me, Anna. You've made me realize that there's more to life than just success or ambition. You've taught me the importance of being present, of caring about someone beyond what they can do for you. Anna looked at him for a long moment, her gaze softening. I never meant to change your life, she said quietly. I just wanted to survive. Xander's heart ached at the weight of her words. He reached over and gently took her hand, squeezing it reassuringly. You've done more than survive, he said softly. You've thrived. You've shown me strength, resilience, and courage that I didn't even know existed. And now, it's time for you to start living for yourself, to start pursuing the life you want. Anna's eyes filled with tears, and for a moment, she didn't say anything. She just sat there, absorbing his words, letting them sink in. Then, finally, she spoke. I don't know if I'll ever stop being afraid, she said, her voice trembling. But I want to try. I want to see what's out there, beyond the fear. Xander smiled warmly at her, his heart swelling with pride. You don't have to do it all at once, he said gently, but you're already taking those first steps, and that's what matters. You're not alone in this, Anna, and you don't have to face your fears alone. As the days passed, Anna's confidence continued to grow. She started taking on new challenges, signing up for a local art class, and even reaching out to other students. It wasn't always easy, but with each step, she felt more in control of her own destiny. Xander continued to be her constant support, never pushing her too hard, but always there to offer encouragement and guidance when she needed it. One evening, as they sat together on the porch, watching the sunset, Anna turned to him. I think I'm finally starting to believe that I deserve a future, she said softly, her voice filled with emotion. Xander looked at her, his eyes full of warmth and pride. You've always deserved it, Anna, he said quietly, and I'm so proud of you for realizing that. Anna smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. She had found her place in the world, and with Xander's unwavering support, she was ready to take on whatever came next. The road ahead would still have its challenges, but Anna knew that with the right foundation and the strength she had inside her, there was nothing she couldn't overcome. As the last rays of the sun dipped below the horizon, Anna felt a sense of peace settle in her heart. She wasn't alone anymore. She had a future, her future, and for the first time in a long time, she was excited to see where it would take her. Xander looked out the window, the evening sky painted in shades of deep purple and gold, the quiet of the night settling in. It had been a month since Anna had started taking steps to rebuild her life, and he could see the difference in her. Every day, she became a little more confident, a little more sure of herself. It wasn't always easy, but she was beginning to accept the idea that she deserved a life beyond survival. She was beginning to believe that she could have a future filled with possibilities. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Xander found Anna standing outside on the porch, looking out at the same view. Her figure was silhouetted against the fading light, her posture relaxed but thoughtful. He approached quietly, not wanting to disturb the peaceful moment. Beautiful, isn't it? He said softly, standing beside her. Anna glanced over at him, offering a small smile. Yeah, it is, she replied. Her voice calm but filled with something deeper, something that Xander had come to recognize as hope. It's hard to believe that things can be this good. Xander nodded, looking out at the view. I know, he said quietly. But you've worked hard for this, Anna. You've come so far. Anna didn't say anything at first. She just stood there, her eyes fixed on the horizon, her mind clearly drifting. Xander could sense that she had more on her mind than she was willing to share. After a long pause, she spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. I think I'm ready to move forward, Xander, she said, her words carrying a weight of finality. I've been thinking about everything, about the future, and I'm ready to leave the past behind. I want to build something, not just for today, but for tomorrow. Xander's heart swelled with pride. He had known that Anna would get to this point, but hearing her say it out loud made it real. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was thriving. "You are more than ready," he said, his voice full of warmth. "I've watched you grow, Anna. You've found strength in places you didn't even know you had." Anna turned to him then, her expression softening. "I think I've been holding on to my fears for too long," she admitted, her voice quiet but resolute. "But I'm ready to let them go. I'm ready to trust, to believe in something bigger than myself." Xander smiled gently, reaching out to touch her arm. "You're not alone in this, Anna," he said, his voice filled with sincerity. "I'm here with you, every step of the way." Anna nodded, her eyes filled with gratitude. "I know, and that means more to me than I can say." They stood there for a moment, the cool evening air wrapping around them, and Xander realized just how far they had come together. It had been a journey, filled with challenges, but it had also been filled with triumphs, small victories that added up to something monumental. Anna had learned to trust again, to open her heart, and most importantly, to believe in herself. The following days were filled with more moments of growth for Anna. She had started to explore new interests, signing up for community classes in art and photography, things she had always been passionate about but had never allowed herself to pursue. Xander supported her every step of the way, encouraging her to take the time she needed to rediscover what made her happy. One afternoon, as they were walking through the local park, Anna brought up something that had been weighing on her mind. "Xander," she began, her voice a little hesitant, "I've been thinking about something. I've been feeling ready, you know? Ready to really step into the future." Xander smiled at her, pleased to see the determination in her eyes. "That's great, Anna. I'm proud of you." But Anna wasn't finished. "I've been thinking about leaving here," she said, her voice quieter now, as if the idea was still forming in her mind, "about going to school, maybe somewhere else, somewhere I can really start over." Xander felt a pang in his chest at the thought, but he quickly masked it with a supportive smile. He had always known this day would come, but hearing Anna express it aloud made it real. "I think that's a wonderful idea," he said, his voice steady. "You've worked so hard to get to this point, and you deserve to take that next step. Wherever you go, I'll be here for you." Anna looked at him, her eyes searching his face for any hint of doubt, but all she found was warmth and encouragement. "Are you sure?" she asked, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "I mean, what if I fail?" Xander shook his head gently, his eyes filled with understanding. "You won't fail, Anna. You've already come so far, and I believe in you. You're stronger than you know." Anna smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. The conversation marked a new chapter for both of them. Anna was ready to take on the world, to face new challenges and opportunities, and Xander was ready to support her as she did. They were no longer just two people living in the same house. They had become a family, bound together not by blood, but by love and trust. Over the next few weeks, they worked together to prepare for Anna's future. She applied to schools in different cities, explored scholarships, and looked at housing options. Xander helped her with the process, offering guidance where needed, but always allowing her the space to make her own decisions. He could see the excitement in her eyes as she took each step toward her future, and it filled him with pride to know that he had played a part in helping her get to this point. It wasn't easy. There were moments when Anna doubted herself, when she questioned whether she was truly ready for the challenges ahead. But every time that doubt crept in, Xander was there to remind her of her strength, of how far she had come, and of the person she was becoming. And with each passing day, Anna grew more confident in her decision, more certain of the future she was about to build. The day finally came when Anna received her acceptance letter to a school across the country. The news was a moment of triumph, a culmination of everything she had worked toward. She looked at Xander, her eyes bright with excitement, and in that moment, she realized just how much she had changed. She wasn't just leaving to escape her past. She was leaving to build her future, one that was filled with possibilities. And as Xander hugged her, feeling the weight of the moment, he knew that this was just the beginning of a whole new chapter in both of their lives. Xander stood in the hallway, looking at the clock. The time had come, the moment he had known was approaching but had never fully prepared for. Anna was leaving. It had been months since she had first stepped into his life, months of growth, struggle, and triumph. He had watched her transform from a scared, withdrawn girl into a confident young woman who was finally beginning to see her potential. The acceptance letter had come through, and Anna was ready. Ready to take on the world, ready to leave the comfort of this home and start a new chapter. He had known this day would come, but now that it was here, Xander found himself conflicted. Part of him was proud, immensely proud of how far Anna had come. She had not only built a future for herself but had also learned to believe in it. But another part of him felt an overwhelming sense of loss. He had come to love Anna like his own, and the thought of her leaving was bittersweet. He had promised her that he would always be there, and now, as she stood at the threshold of her future, Xander realized that his role in her life was shifting. He was no longer just the man who had given her a place to stay. He was her mentor, her protector, and now, her guide as she stepped out on her own. The door to the living room opened, and Anna appeared, her suitcase in hand. She looked different, stronger, more sure of herself. The fear that had once defined her had been replaced with something else, something Xander couldn't quite put into words. It wasn't just confidence, it was hope. Hope for a future she could shape herself. "Are you ready?" Xander asked, his voice steady but filled with emotion. Anna nodded, her eyes glistening with tears she hadn't let fall. "I think so," she replied, her voice quiet but strong. "I'm really going to miss this place. You've done more for me than I ever imagined." Xander smiled, his heart swelling with pride. "You've done the hard work, Anna," he said gently. "I just gave you a chance to find yourself." They stood there for a moment, the weight of everything that had happened between them hanging in the air. It wasn't just about her leaving, it was about the bond they had formed. They had both come a long way, and now Anna was taking that final step toward independence. Xander knew this moment was part of the process, part of her growth. But it still hurt, in a way he hadn't anticipated. "I'll always be here," Xander said softly, his voice thick with emotion. "You know that, right?" Anna smiled, and for the first time in a long time, it was a smile of pure joy, not fear or doubt. "I know," she said, her voice filled with warmth, "and I'll carry this with me. Everything you've taught me, all the things I never thought I could do." Xander felt his throat tighten. He had always known Anna had it in her to succeed, but hearing her say it out loud was different. It made everything feel real in a way that words alone couldn't capture. "You've got so much ahead of you," he said, his voice soft and steady. "I'm proud of you, Anna, and I believe in you." Anna stepped closer, setting her suitcase down, and gave him a tight hug. Xander wrapped his arms around her, holding her close for a moment. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice breaking slightly. "For everything." "You don't have to thank me," Xander said, his voice warm. "I'm just glad I could be here for you. You've always had it in you. I just helped you see it." They stood there for a long moment, letting the weight of the moment settle between them. Anna wasn't just leaving the house. She was leaving the past behind, taking with her everything she had learned, everything she had worked for, and stepping into a future full of promise. Xander knew that she would face challenges ahead, but he also knew that she was ready. He had seen her strength, her resilience, and now, she was going to put that to the test. The time had come for her to live the life she had always deserved. Anna finally pulled away from the hug, her eyes bright with a mix of excitement and sadness. "I'll never forget this place," she said softly, her voice full of emotion. "You've made me feel like I belong." Xander nodded, his eyes soft. "You do belong, Anna. And wherever you go, you'll always have a place here. Always." She smiled one last time, before picking up her suitcase and heading for the door. "I guess this is it," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "But it's not goodbye. It's just the beginning." "Just the beginning," Xander echoed, his heart full as he watched her walk out the door. As the door closed behind her, Xander stood there for a moment, letting the silence settle in. Anna was ready. She was out there, on her own, and he had helped her get there. But as he stood in the quiet of the house, he realized that he, too, had changed. He had learned something important through all of this, that love, true love, was about letting go. It was about helping someone find their own path, even when it meant stepping away. Xander knew that Anna would be fine. She would thrive, and he would always be there for her, no matter what. It wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of something new, something beautiful. And as he turned back into the house, Xander smiled to himself, knowing that he had done everything he could to help Anna build the life she had always dreamed of. The road ahead would be hers to walk, but she wasn't walking it alone. He had given her the foundation, and now she would build her future, one step at a time. Xander sat in his study, the silence of the house surrounding him. It had been a few weeks since Anna left for school, and though he was proud of her, a part of him missed the presence of the young girl who had transformed his life in ways he hadn't anticipated. The mansion felt quieter now, and it wasn't just because of the empty rooms or the lack of the usual noise. It was because the vibrant energy Anna had brought into the house had settled into his heart, leaving him with a sense of emptiness he wasn't sure how to fill. He had spent so many months helping her find her way, that now, with her beginning her journey on her own, Xander found himself confronting an unfamiliar stillness in his own life. It was a strange feeling, the sense of longing for something that was no longer there. But it wasn't just about missing Anna, it was about how her presence had made him realize something important. His life had been filled with work, success, and a carefully curated world of luxury. But it was only when Anna had come into his life that he realized how hollow it had all been. He had spent years pursuing wealth and power, but what did it all mean if he didn't have someone to share it with, someone to care for, someone to love? As the days went on, Xander found himself thinking back to all the moments he and Anna had shared. He remembered the first time she had walked into the mansion, broken and vulnerable, with nothing but a small piece of hope. He remembered the countless hours spent talking with her, helping her navigate her fears, and watching as she slowly began to trust again. He thought about her quiet smiles, the way she started to show her artwork, and how she began to speak about her future with excitement. All of those moments, small and significant, had shaped the person Anna was becoming, and Xander couldn't help but feel honored to have been a part of that journey. But now, she was out there, finding her own path. He had given her the tools she needed, the love and support, but the rest was up to her, and he knew that she was more than capable of succeeding. Even so, a part of him wished he could be there for her more. As much as he had tried to prepare himself for this moment, the reality of her leaving was harder than he expected. It wasn't just about missing her, it was about confronting the fact that she was no longer a child needing protection. She was an adult, ready to face the world on her own. He had helped her find her strength, but now she needed to find it for herself. As Xander sat in the silence of his study, he realized that he had to start confronting his own fears as well. He had spent so much time focusing on Anna's needs, on making sure she was okay, that he hadn't given much thought to what he wanted for his own life. Now, with her gone, he had the space to reflect on his own journey, to think about where he was heading and what he truly wanted out of life. He knew he couldn't stay in this limbo forever. He couldn't keep living in the past, holding on to the feelings of guilt and loss. He needed to move forward, just as Anna had. He needed to find his own path, just as she was doing. As the weeks passed, Xander found himself starting to get involved in new projects, ones that aligned more with his passions than his business. He started volunteering at local organizations, offering mentorship to young people who, like Anna, needed someone to believe in them. He also began reconnecting with friends, people he had lost touch with over the years, and rediscovered the joy of simply spending time with others. Slowly, Xander started to feel a sense of fulfillment that had been missing for years. He realized that his purpose wasn't just about building an empire, it was about making a difference in people's lives, just as he had made a difference in Anna's. One evening, Xander received a call from Anna. Her voice, though slightly muffled by the noise in the background, still had that familiar warmth. "Hey Xander," she said, her tone light. "I just wanted to let you know that I made it through my first week. It's been hard, but I'm doing okay." Xander smiled as he listened to her. "I knew you would," he said. "You're stronger than you realize, Anna." There was a brief pause, and then Anna continued, her voice tinged with something like excitement. "I've been making new friends here, and I joined a photography class. It's a little intimidating, but I'm really excited about it." Xander could hear the passion in her voice, and it made his heart swell with pride. "That's amazing, Anna. I'm so proud of you." Anna chuckled softly, the sound like music to his ears. "I know I'm still figuring things out, but for the first time, I feel like I'm doing something for me. It feels good." "That's what matters," Xander said, his voice filled with emotion. "You're finally living for yourself, and that's the most important thing." Anna paused again, and when she spoke next, Her voice softened. "Thank you, Xander, for everything. I don't think I would have gotten here without you." Xander's throat tightened, and for a moment, he was silent. "You did the hard work, Anna," he said finally, his voice thick. "I just gave you a place to find your strength." They spoke a little longer, sharing details about her new life, her challenges, and the small victories she had already experienced. As the conversation came to an end, Anna promised to keep in touch, and Xander promised to be there whenever she needed him. After hanging up, Xander sat back, a quiet peace settling in his heart. He had done his job, he had helped Anna find her way, and now, he could see that she was thriving, that she was ready to build the life she had always dreamed of. The road ahead wasn't always going to be easy, but Xander knew that she was no longer alone. She was strong, and so was he. Together, they had learned what it meant to move forward, to trust in themselves and in each other. And now, as the days passed, Xander began to look forward to the next chapter of his own life, knowing that whatever came next, he would face it with the same strength and courage that Anna had shown him. Xander sat in his living room, a glass of water in his hand, his thoughts consumed by the changes in his life. It had been several months since Anna had left for school, and he had slowly adjusted to the quiet that had settled into the house. He had been busy with work, and although he had filled the void of Anna's absence with new activities and projects, there was still an underlying feeling that something important was missing. He hadn't realized just how much he had come to depend on her presence, her energy, and the way she had brought life back into the house. But Xander was proud of her, he could feel it in his bones. She was thriving, pursuing her passions, finding new connections, and most importantly, living her life on her own terms. The phone on the table buzzed, pulling Xander from his thoughts. It was a message from Anna, the first one he had received in a while. He smiled as he read it. "I made it to the art show today. I think it went well, and I wanted to thank you for everything you've done. I couldn't have done it without you." Xander's heart warmed at the message, and he quickly typed a reply. "I'm so proud of you, Anna. You've worked hard for this. Keep believing in yourself. You've got this." He sent the message and set the phone down, feeling a sense of fulfillment. As much as he missed her, he knew she was on the right path. Xander hadn't realized how much his own life had been tied to her journey until now. He had been so focused on her growth that he hadn't taken the time to reflect on his own. But now, looking at the way Anna was blossoming, he realized that he too had grown in ways he hadn't expected. The past few months had taught him something profound, that true fulfillment came not from success or status, but from making meaningful connections and supporting others. Anna had shown him that. It wasn't just about giving, it was about being present, about seeing someone for who they really were and helping them become the best version of themselves. Xander stood up and walked over to the window, looking out at the garden where he and Anna had spent many afternoons. It was spring now, the flowers blooming in vibrant colors, the air filled with the scent of fresh blossoms. He thought about everything that had happened, the ups and downs, the struggles, the breakthroughs, and felt a quiet sense of pride. Anna was no longer the frightened girl who had walked into his life. She was strong, independent, and ready to face whatever came next. But there was something else that had changed for Xander too. As he watched Anna's growth, he had started to think more about his own future. He realized that he had spent too much time living in the past, clinging to a version of himself that no longer served him. The truth was, he had been avoiding his own growth. Helping Anna had been a way for him to avoid confronting his own fears and uncertainties. But now, seeing how far she had come, Xander knew it was time for him to make some changes in his own life too. He couldn't keep waiting for the next big thing to happen. He needed to take control of his own future, just like Anna had done. He thought back to the hobbies he had once enjoyed before work and responsibilities had consumed him. He had always loved painting, something he hadn't done in years. The thought of picking up a paintbrush again, of creating something for himself, sparked a feeling of excitement within him. He decided that it was time to revisit those passions, to make space for the things that had once brought him joy. The next day, Xander signed up for a local art class. It felt like a small step, but for him, it was a big one. It wasn't about being perfect or achieving anything monumental. It was about reclaiming a part of himself that he had let go of. That evening, after dinner, Xander decided to call Anna. He missed their long conversations, the way she always had a new story to share, or something she had learned. When she answered the phone, her voice sounded bright, and for a moment, Xander could hear the happiness in it. "Hey, Xander, how's everything going?" she asked, her tone upbeat. "Good," he replied with a smile. "I've been thinking a lot about things lately. You know, how much you've changed, and how much I've learned from you." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "What do you mean?" Anna asked, her voice soft with curiosity. "Well," Xander said thoughtfully, "I've realized that watching you grow has made me reflect on my own life. I've been so focused on helping you find your way, but I think it's time I find my own path too." Anna's voice brightened, a hint of excitement in her tone. "That's great, Xander. You've always been there for me, but now it's your turn to do something for yourself." Xander smiled, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. "I think so," he said, his voice filled with warmth. "I've signed up for an art class. It's something I used to love, and I'm finally making time for it again." Anna laughed softly, and Xander could tell she was genuinely happy for him. "I'm so proud of you. You've helped me so much, and now you're taking that step for yourself." Xander felt a sense of peace, knowing that they were both moving forward. It wasn't just about Anna anymore, it was about both of them, each finding their own way. "Thanks, Anna. You've been a big part of that. You've shown me how important it is to live for yourself." "You've always been there for me, Xander," she replied, her voice full of affection. "I'll always be grateful for that." Xander's heart swelled. It wasn't just about their connection, it was about their shared journey of growth. They had both learned the same lesson: life was about progress, not perfection, and they were both on their way to a brighter future. As Xander hung up the phone, he felt more determined than ever to pursue his own passions, to keep moving forward, just as Anna was doing. He was ready to take on whatever came next with the same courage, the same hope, and the same belief in the future that Anna had shown him. Xander sat in the cozy corner of his favorite coffee shop, his sketchbook open in front of him. The past few weeks had been a whirlwind of emotions, but today, as he sat here, he felt a rare sense of calm. His art class had become a peaceful escape, a place where he could reconnect with himself and his passions. For the first time in years, he was doing something just for him. He felt a spark of creativity that he had long neglected. As he sketched, his mind wandered back to the conversation he had with Anna the other night. Her words had stayed with him. "It's your turn now, Xander. You've helped me so much. Now it's time to do something for yourself." He hadn't realized how much he had lost touch with himself until she pointed it out. Helping Anna had brought him purpose, but he had put his own life on hold in the process. Now, with her pursuing her future and finding her own way, Xander realized that it was time to do the same. He had a chance to rediscover the parts of him that he had set aside for so long. The sound of his phone vibrating on the table broke him out of his thoughts. He glanced down to see a message from Anna. "Hey, I just wanted to check in. Things are going great here, but I miss our chats. Hope you're doing well." A smile tugged at Xander's lips as he typed his response. "I'm proud of you, Anna. Keep doing amazing things. And I'm doing well, thanks for asking. Let's catch up soon." After sending the message, Xander returned to his sketching, but he couldn't shake the feeling of pride that washed over him. Anna had come so far, she was embracing her new life with open arms, and every step she took made him feel like he was part of something bigger than himself. She had trusted him with her heart, and he had watched her become a young woman full of promise, ready to take on the world. But it wasn't just about her anymore. It was about both of them. He had learned so much from her: how to be patient, how to truly listen, and most of all, how to be brave. Anna had taught him that it was okay to step out of his comfort zone and pursue what made him happy. That lesson was one he would carry with him for the rest of his life. As Xander sat there, lost in his thoughts and the gentle hum of the cafe, he realized that his own journey was only just beginning. He had spent so much time focused on others, first his career, and then Anna, that he had forgotten what it was like to invest in himself. He had lost sight of the things he had once loved: painting, exploring new places, and even just enjoying quiet moments like this one. Today, he was making a promise to himself to do more of what brought him joy, to reclaim those parts of himself that he had set aside for so long. He wasn't sure exactly what the future held, but he knew that he was ready to face it. He was ready to embrace whatever came next with the same enthusiasm that Anna had shown when she started her new life. As he finished his coffee, he packed up his sketchbook and walked out into the street, his heart feeling lighter than it had in a long time. He realized that it was okay to take things one step at a time. There was no rush. He had a lifetime ahead of him, and for the first time in years, he felt a sense of excitement for the future. Later that week, Xander received another message from Anna. She had sent him a photo of one of her art pieces, and the pride in her message was evident. "Look what I made," she wrote. "I'm really starting to feel like I belong here. Thank you for believing in me." The photo showed a beautiful landscape, vibrant and full of life, a reflection of Anna's growth. Xander smiled as he looked at the photo, feeling the familiar warmth spread through him. He replied with a message that came straight from the heart. "You've always had it in you, Anna. I'm so proud of you. Keep chasing your dreams." As he put his phone down, Xander realized how much he had learned from his time with Anna. He had always been so focused on giving, on being the one to provide support and guidance, but now he understood that helping others also meant helping yourself. Anna had taught him that you could grow by lifting others up, and in doing so, you could find your own strength. With that realization, Xander made another decision. He was going to start traveling again, something he had always wanted to do but had put off. The world was full of experiences, places to explore, and people to meet. He didn't want to wait any longer. There was no reason to put off the adventures he had dreamed of, especially now that he had the time and the freedom to do so. The next morning, Xander made plans for a trip, choosing a destination he had always wanted to visit. The coast, with its stunning cliffs, wild beaches, and rich history. It felt like the right place to start this next chapter of his life. As he made his travel arrangements, he felt a sense of excitement building inside him. He was doing it, he was taking the leap, just like Anna had. When he spoke to her again, he told her about his plans. She was thrilled for him, and hearing her excitement made him realize just how much he had missed those moments of connection. "I think I'm going to go to the coast for a bit," he told her. "I've been wanting to do something like this for a long time. It's time to start living my own adventure." "That sounds amazing," Anna replied. "You deserve it, Xander. I can't wait to hear all about it when you get back." As Xander hung up the phone, he realized that the future wasn't something to fear, it was something to embrace. He had given Anna the courage to face her own future, and now, it was his turn to do the same. With a renewed sense of purpose and a heart full of gratitude, Xander knew that this next chapter in his life would be filled with new experiences, new challenges, and new opportunities. He was ready, and he couldn't wait to see where the road would take him. Xander arrived at the coast after a long drive, the ocean stretching out before him in all its majestic beauty. The salty breeze whipped through his hair, and the sound of the crashing waves filled his ears, offering a sense of calm he hadn't realized he needed. As he stepped out of his car and took in the view, a feeling of peace washed over him. This was what he had been missing, time for himself, time to reflect and reconnect with the world around him. It had been a while since he had taken time off, and now, standing on the edge of the beach, he realized how much he had been holding back. The weight of his responsibilities, the pressure of always being there for others, had taken its toll. But now, in this moment, he was free. Free to breathe, free to explore, and free to finally listen to what he needed. As he walked along the shore, his thoughts drifted to Anna. He had been so proud of her from the moment she had stepped into his life. He had watched her grow from someone lost in the chaos of her past into a confident young woman who was now carving out her own path. He had seen her take the first steps toward building a future, and now, she was living it. Every time they spoke, Anna seemed to have something new to share, and Xander couldn't help but smile at her enthusiasm. He knew it wasn't easy for her, but she was thriving, embracing every new challenge with determination. They hadn't spoken much since he left, but he could tell she was doing well. As much as he missed her, he knew she was exactly where she needed to be. And for the first time, Xander allowed himself to feel like he was exactly where he needed to be. The trip was more than just an escape. It was a chance for him to reflect, to think about what he wanted next. He had spent so much of his life focused on others, on fixing problems and offering support, that he hadn't really stopped to think about his own needs. The coast, with its endless horizon and calming waves, seemed to give him the space he needed to think. He realized that he had been running on autopilot for so long. The success, the wealth, the busy lifestyle, none of it had brought him true peace. The true fulfillment he sought wasn't in the work he did, or the things he had accumulated. It was in moments like this, standing on the beach with nothing but the sound of the waves and the open sky before him. The next few days were a blur of quiet moments and new experiences. Xander spent his mornings walking along the beach, letting the waves crash at his feet, and his afternoons exploring the nearby town. He met new people, visited small cafes, and took in the sights. For the first time in a long time, he felt truly present in his own life. The weight of the past few months had lifted, and he felt free. He even began to sketch again, something he hadn't done in years. His time at the art class had rekindled his passion, and now, with the ocean as his muse, he filled pages of his sketchbook with drawings of the waves, the cliffs, and the vast sky. Each stroke of the pencil seemed to release more of the tension that had been building up inside him. One evening, as he sat on the edge of the pier, sketching the sunset, Xander received a message from Anna. Her message was simple, but it carried with it a sense of joy that made his heart swell. "I wanted to tell you that I got accepted into my first photography exhibit. It's happening next month, and I can't believe it. I feel like everything is finally coming together." Xander smiled as he read the message. He could practically hear the excitement in her words. He quickly typed back, "That's amazing, Anna. I knew you had it in you. You've worked so hard, and now it's paying off." As he pressed send, Xander felt a wave of pride for her. She had taken everything he had taught her, all the lessons about believing in herself and pushing past the fear, and had made it her own. The exhibit was a huge milestone for Anna, and he knew it was only the beginning of even greater things to come. As the sun sank lower, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, Xander felt a renewed sense of purpose. The trip had given him clarity, a moment of peace where he could think about what he wanted from his own future. Just as Anna was carving out a new path, so was he. The work he had done with her had taught him how important it was to help others. But it also reminded him how crucial it was to take care of himself, to pursue his own dreams, and to stop putting his life on hold. As he watched the last rays of sunlight disappear behind the horizon, Xander made a decision. He would return home, not just to resume his work, but to start living in a way that was more in line with his own passions. He would dedicate time to his art, continue exploring new places, and reconnect with the people he had lost touch with over the years. He would no longer be defined solely by his career or his responsibilities to others. He would finally start living for himself. The next morning, Xander packed his things, ready to return home. He felt different, as if a burden had been lifted. And he was eager to see what the future held. As he drove back, he thought about Anna and the bright future ahead of her. She was living proof that anything was possible if you put your mind to it. And he was determined to take that same energy into his own life. When he got home, Xander sat down to reflect on everything he had learned during his trip. He realized that life wasn't just about helping others or fixing problems, it was about living authentically, following your heart, and making time for the things that truly matter. And so, Xander knew that as he moved forward, he would do so with a renewed sense of purpose, ready to embrace whatever came next, just as Anna had embraced the life she was building. And that, he thought, was the key to true fulfillment. Xander walked through the door of his home, the quiet hum of the house feeling different this time. It was as though a shift had occurred, not just in the world outside but within himself. The trip to the coast had been a turning point, and now, standing here, he realized that the journey he had been on was far from over. It was just beginning, in a new way. He had rediscovered pieces of himself that had been buried for too long, things he had neglected in the rush to succeed and to be there for others. Helping Anna had been a transformative experience for both of them, but it had also shown him the importance of nurturing his own dreams. Now, back in the familiar surroundings of his home, Xander could feel the weight of the past few months settling in. Anna had moved on, starting a new chapter of her life. She was thriving in her art and making her mark on the world. The pride he felt for her was immeasurable, but at the same time, it was bittersweet. He missed the days when they had spent hours talking about her dreams, about what the future held for her. But that chapter was hers to write now, and Xander was ready to start writing his own. As he sat down at his desk, a sense of clarity washed over him. He had always been driven by ambition, always looking for the next big thing, but now, for the first time in a long time, he felt a sense of peace. His career was still important to him, but he had come to realize that there was more to life than success and recognition. He wanted to find balance between work and personal fulfillment, between supporting others and taking care of himself. The phone on his desk buzzed, and he looked at the screen to see a message from Anna. "I just wanted to let you know that I got my first commission for a project. It's happening next month, and I feel like everything is falling into place. Thank you for being there for me." Xander smiled, his heart swelling with pride as he read the message. Anna was doing it. She was creating the life she had always dreamed of. The message was a reminder of how far she had come and how much he had been a part of her transformation. He quickly typed a reply. "I'm so proud of you, Anna. You've worked so hard for this. Keep going, and keep believing in yourself." As he sent the message, Xander realized that he too had something to be proud of. He had helped Anna discover her strength, and now she was living proof of the power of believing in yourself. But he had also learned from her. He had learned to take chances, to step outside of his comfort zone, and to start embracing his own passions. He was no longer living for others, he was living for himself. As the days passed, Xander began to put his plans into action. He reconnected with old friends, took more time for himself, and began to explore the world of art that had once sparked his soul. He even found himself sketching more regularly, filling pages with landscapes and abstract pieces, each one a reflection of his journey. He also started visiting new places, traveling to nearby cities and towns, meeting new people, and experiencing life in ways he had never allowed himself before. He was no longer waiting for something to happen. He was making it happen. In the quiet moments, Xander often thought about Anna and the path she had taken. She had come into his life when he least expected it, and together, they had built something beautiful. She had taught him the power of vulnerability, the importance of opening your heart to the world, and the strength that comes from trusting yourself. Xander knew that the time he had spent with Anna had changed him forever. He had always thought of himself as strong, but Anna had shown him a different kind of strength, the strength to change, to grow, and to embrace life with open arms. One evening, as Xander sat on his porch with a glass of wine, watching the sun dip below the horizon, he received a call. It was from Anna. "Hey, Xander," she said, her voice full of excitement. "I wanted to tell you that I'm getting more involved in the local art community here. I met a few people who are working on some amazing projects, and they want me to collaborate with them. I can't believe how much things have changed." Xander smiled as he listened to her. "That's incredible, Anna," he said, his voice filled with pride. "You're making things happen, and I couldn't be happier for you." Anna's voice softened. "I just wanted to thank you again. You gave me the courage to take this step. You showed me that I could do it, even when I didn't believe in myself." Xander paused for a moment, the emotion in his chest almost overwhelming. "I'm just so proud of you," he said quietly. "You always had it in you, Anna. You've proven that to yourself." There was a silence on the other end of the line, and Xander could hear the sound of Anna's breath, steady but filled with emotion. "I couldn't have done it without you," she whispered. "You gave me more than a place to stay. You gave me the belief that I could change my life." Xander felt the weight of her words sink in. He had always tried to give Anna the tools to succeed, but hearing her acknowledge how far she had come was a reminder that it wasn't just about what he had done for her. It was about how they had grown together. "You did it all yourself," he said gently. "I just gave you the chance to believe in yourself." As the conversation ended, Xander sat there, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. Anna was doing it. She was living the life she had always dreamed of, and he had played a part in helping her get there. But the truth was, she had done the hard work. She had found the courage to face her fears, to chase her dreams, and to become the person she was always meant to be. Xander knew that their journeys weren't over. Anna had her own path, and he had his. But he also knew that they would always be connected. They had helped each other find their way. And now, both of them were living their lives, chasing their dreams, and creating futures that were full of possibility. The road ahead would still have its challenges, but Xander was ready for whatever came next. He had learned to embrace life's unpredictability, to take chances, and to trust in the process. The future was waiting, and he was ready to meet it head on.